Hi folks, it's Darcy from the purposefulpantry.com and welcome back to my channel. Today we're on day 2 of Drycember, a month-long bite-sized learning experience to learn how to dehydrate. So yesterday we talked about some of the resources that you can learn from, and I'll leave a link in the end cards at the end of this video that you can go back and watch it to catch up. But today we're talking about the types of dehydrators that are available on the market. There are solar dehydrators. There are air dehydrators, which you just put things on mesh sheets and stack them outside to let the air and the sun do their magic. But we're not going to be using those today because most of us use electric machines. So we're talking about a stackable or a cabinet style dehydrator. And I'm going to show you the difference between the two so that as you're trying to figure out which machine you want to purchase or if you're going to upgrade, that you kind of understand the difference between how the two machines work and that you can make a better choice. I'm going to link down below and in the iCards a post that I have on my website that gives you a breakdown of how to choose a dehydrator based on the style, the mechanics, the budget, your needs, and those kind of things, and then break down quite a few different machines in each of the budget categories so that you can kind of look at what's available out on the market and the best machines that I feel are the best ones for those price ranges. But today we're not going to be doing a review on the machines that I have. We're going to be talking about the way that the machines work so that you can make a better choice. But before we get started, I wanted to give some encouragement to those of you who are just starting out trying to find your first dehydrator. You do not have to have the biggest, baddest, most expensive dehydrator on the market. You may see that when you join groups on Facebook or that when you see people out on YouTube videos or blogs, a lot of people are using an Excalibur. Yes, it's a good machine. It's one of the best on the market, but it's also really expensive, but it's not necessary. The best machine that you can buy for you is the machine that you're actually going to use, not one that you put yourself in debt or have to struggle to pay for because it's not worth it. Yes, you may decide to upgrade later to a bigger machine if you buy a smaller one in the beginning, and that's okay. Do what you can afford because they all work the same. They all dry your food. You can get the same results from every machine that you have. So let's get started. Okay, so what we have here is a cabinet unit. It is a larger cabinet like this. Any of them though, the size doesn't matter. You can have a Kasori, which is smaller, probably about at least a third smaller than this. LEMs, any of the ones that have a cabinet, this is what you have. A door that usually goes in the front that either closes like, opens like French doors or has an attachable door like this. You're going to notice that on yours it has some space right here in the door, which is what part of the air coming out is as the fan blows in. So the basic construction is that you have this cabinet just like this, and you have slide-in trays, and the trays all are about the same width apart. The cool thing about cabinets is that you can actually adjust the tray spacing. So if you have something like greens that take up extra space this way because they're bulky, you can actually take a tray out, leave it out, and you can put your greens in without it taking up extra, without you squishing the greens, actually, in effect. And so you've got some extra space for those things that take up vertical space until they shrink down. So that's something that's good about having a cabinet style, is that you can make that adjustment a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to slide the trays in. I'm going to slide the trays out so that you can see the inside. And basically how this is set up is that you have the fan in the very back of the machine, just like that. And it blows all of the air across the machine this way. Instead of going up and down like a vertical stacking machine does, this allows air to flow across all the trays at the same rate. So nothing is having to compete with the air coming through. So it makes it more efficient for drying when you have all the trays drying at the same rate. The only thing that you do have to do with a cabinet style is, like on this one, you can see where the top of the fan has some space. There's that same amount of space down at the bottom too, and it means that this very top shelf and the very bottom shelf here, the one right down here, tend not to dry as equally as the trays off of the middle, which is no big deal for most things. It still dries, it's still efficient, it still works. You don't have to rotate, but it can be helpful. So rotating means you just take this drawer at some point during your, oh look, there's still a little bit, I wash those trays and there's still always a little bits left over. And that's an old stained one. You pull it out and you just transfer the tray to the bottom, and you take the one from the bottom and transfer it to the top. So that's almost, I rarely ever have to do that. That's pretty rare. The only thing I do have to do is if I'm doing something like a fruit leather or anything that is more susceptible to being over dried, which is something we'll get in a couple of days, because you can't, most of the time you can't over dry anything, but with fruit leathers you want a certain texture. I will tend to take a tray out and spin it around. Can I do this one-handed? Can I do it one-handed? Yes, she did. I will spin it around 180 degrees and actually put it in correctly. One-handed. Look at how she's doing this. I will spin it so that the back of the tray becomes the front and the front becomes the back, so that it doesn't dry unevenly across the sheet. But that's usually only with something like a fruit leather, and maybe sometimes something like berries, that you're really working at trying to get an even dry through the whole thing. But otherwise, I rarely have to rotate anything, either spinning the tray or rotating from the top to the bottom of the sheen. It's rare that I ever have to do that. So that's the basic way of how these work. I'll just go ahead and take all the trays out so that you can get an inside look of what it looks like. So basically, there it is. That's how the machine looks on the inside. It's basically the same. This happens to be an Excalibur, but most other cabinet machines are just like this. So let's get on to the Stackable next. All right, here is my Stackable. I have a Nesco FD75, and this is what it looks like. You have stackable trays that you put your product into, stack the trays on top of each other, and you have a fan that blows one direction. Well, just like with the cabinet only blows one direction, this one blows up and down, or it blows down unless you have a machine that happens to have the fan on the bottom, which it blows up. And it means that foods within the stack have to compete for that air, because the things that dry at the top are going to dry faster than the things that are down at the bottom. Now, for most things, it really doesn't matter. It's not like if you're drying herbs, if you're drying things that dry relatively quickly, that doesn't matter because they'll dry. It all dries about the same. But if you have something that's long-term, you're going to have to rotate your trays. But let's just start with the mechanics of this first. Okay, so what you have is a machine. Now, there may be different stackables work differently. It depends on how your machine was made, but this is the basic premise of how they are. Mine is a plug it in to turn it on, but then I have an adjustment for the temperature. But you can't just keep this plugged in someplace and then turn it off and on with a dial, because it has to be done with the plug. Take off the fan compartment. This is the fan. It's that little fan right there. It's the motor and everything is all encompassed within the lid. And then you would use this to just put it down and turn it on and run it. So there you go. Set that down. So here is what the inside of a compartment looks like for a Stackable. You have the column that the air runs through, and then it kind of circulates within the inside. Each tray is just like this. Some trays will look a little different than other trays depending on how they're made. The bottom is just this compartment that just holds the whole machine together. I mean, that way you have this. So when you're doing rotation, just like with the cabinet style, rotating means you take this bottom shelf, you take it off, the bottom 2 or 3 shelves maybe, take it off the stack, then you have to restack your machine from the top down, or from the top up, top down. How would you do that? You just rotate all your trays so that the ones that were originally on the bottom are now on the top. So that everybody gets, oops, let's try that again. So that everybody gets their chance in front of the fan. And that way you get a better, more efficient dry as you stack your trays. Now, this doesn't mean you have to restack the machine every hour or every 2 hours. Usually, if it's a 4 to 6 to 8 hour run, I might rotate once. If it's a longer run, rotated maybe every 4 hours. I mean, you don't have to constantly do it. You just have to rotate at some point because you want an even drying throughout your whole machine. Okay, so do you have questions? Have you kind of made a decision about what you think you're going to get? If you have questions, please leave them down below. I want to answer every question that you have about the machines and about what might be the best for you. Again, later, I will probably do a review on the 2 machines that I have. I have kind of an idea of like what I love best and what I dislike most, instead of like going through a formal review. But that'll be a little down the line. Again, I'll leave the resource for my website down below. And if you missed yesterday's video, it's going to be right here. And the rest of the series, if you're catching up, will be listed right here so that you can keep up on all 31 days of dehydrating tips and tricks throughout the month of Drycember. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.